I miss Steel.
Let's go back. Back to the beginning.
Nostalgia trip.
Hi, AJ.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today. My name's Anna, and we're going to talk about nostalgia. And on the show, you get to pick what we're going to talk about today. I have no input in this, and you selected Disney Channel original movies. And for the sake of this episode, I'm going to call it DCOMs, because that's what Wikipedia calls it. So we'll be referring to them as DCOMs. And you've selected a few of your favorite DCOMs, but for those who are not familiar with Disney Channel original movies, which I don't know why you wouldn't be, but if you're not, the first Disney Channel original movie was in 1983 called Tiger Town. And they're originally called Disney Channel Premiere Films. And then starting in 1997 is when they started calling them Disney Channel original movies. So that would be the era that we are more familiar with. What year were you born?
I was born in 96.
96. I'm 95. So yes, this is exactly our era.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's so many that have come out. There's like a massive list of Disney Channel original movies. Some of them I've never heard of. Many of them I'm highly familiar with. I've watched many of them in my life. But you've picked 4 of your favorites, and we're going to talk about them. And so let's start off with Halloweentown. This is one of my favorites as well. Can you talk about Halloweentown? Tee up Halloweentown for us.
Yes, I think as a youth, I was not into horror at all. I was very against scary stuff, scary movies. But I think Halloweentown was like the perfect right amount of Halloween, just to get like in the spirit, get in the feels, but you know, nice and family and kid friendly.
Right, because Calabar is like a little scary.
Yes.
But it's not like super scary. It's I would say it's less scary than like Hocus Pocus, in my opinion.
I would agree, yeah. And I think I grew up and a lot of my friends had older siblings, so they would always or movie stuff, and I was always like, I don't want to do this. And that's where I found Halloweentown. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I can rock. I can still get my Halloween fix, but without the intensity of some of the other horror movies.
And I never really got this as a kid, but it also stars like a very famous 50s star in Debbie Reynolds. Debbie Reynolds starred in Singing in the Rain, which I liked a lot as a child. And I think that I like vaguely recognized that she was in this, but I didn't make the connection that it's like kind of insane that she's in this movie. But she's really the only like famous name in this movie, which is almost a little unique for Disney Channel movies, at least the big hits. Because there's so many stars that have come out of Disney Channel. So I think it's interesting that the star of Halloweentown, Kimberly J. Brown, isn't like a household name compared to a lot of the other ones. Because I think most people would say Halloweentown is probably one of their favorite Disney Channel movies. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would think so. I think it's also one of the most memorable. I think that it was always on at Halloween. And I think just growing up, it was probably, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, one of the earliest, official Disney Channel original movies.
Yes, it is. It came out in 98. So it was the kickoff. It was the second kickoff year from 97. So yes, very early in the DCOM tradition.
Yeah, and I'm less familiar with the sequels, but I mean it must have been pretty successful if they kept, making more of them. And I think they just that was Hocus Pocus they made a remake of. But I would love a remake of Halloweentown. I think that would be awesome.
It would be awesome. But Debbie Reynolds is gone, so she can't be in it. An interesting fact I saw, Debbie Reynolds is the only main character who's in all of the Halloweentown movies. Like Kimberly J. Brown, who's like the teen in the movie, she's not in all of them.
Yeah, because I think it jumps forward pretty far in
it
time,
does.
Where she's like in high school or college.
Right, because there's Halloweentown High, and then is the other one Calabar's Revenge? I think that's the subtitle of the other one. Or is that the subtitle of Halloweentown High?
I can't remember. The first one's mine.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
The first one, Anna.
Yeah, no, I never really cared about the other Halloween towns. Like, even as a kid, I was way more just into the first one. Also, interesting fact that I saw, the director, Dwayne Robert Dunham, worked as an editor in Hollywood for several years and edited Return of the Jedi and Blue Velvet, the David Lynch movie.
Oh, wow.
And he also directed an episode of Twin Peaks.
Interesting.
So, interesting resume to hop over to Disney Channel movies, but it kind of makes sense because Halloweentown is, I guess, a darker Disney Channel movie. So it kind of translates.
Yeah, it kind of sticks out compared to a lot of the other ones as being a more, quote unquote, dark movie.
I agree. Flipping over to our next selection, I would say this is one of the sillier Disney Channel movies, which is The Luck of the Irish. This came out in 2001, so just a couple years after Halloweentown. I also liked this one a lot as a kid. I'm not Irish. I don't really have any connection to that, but I always really liked it. So why don't you talk a little bit about Luck of the Irish?
Yeah, this is, I think, my favorite.
Okay.
Just personally, the most nostalgic, because I'm one of 5 kids, and we had this big Ford, van growing up, and in the van, there was a VCR player, so we had all these, VHS tapes, and one of them was Luck of the Irish, and we must have played that movie hundreds of times in the car, because, a lot of us played baseball, so we'd go on a lot of, trips and on the weekends, and I'll never forget my mom saying that she could, quote the movie, and she never saw it. But then when she saw it for the first time, she was so blown away by what it actually was and who the characters actually were. Because in her mind, she just pictured something completely different.
Can you talk us through the plot of this movie, please?
Yes. So, and I know I just rewatched it, but I already forget all the names. But anyway, the main character is this kind of, I think it's junior high. He's in junior high. And he has a necklace that is his lucky necklace, got from his mom. And they're kind of vague. His parents are kind of vague about his history or his heritage. And he goes to this festival because he sees the same emblem on his necklace is on this poster for this festival. So he goes, and it's an Irish festival. And there his necklace is taken by this, the villain in the film. And you learn that basically it was a lucky necklace given to him through his family, and that this guy is an evil leprechaun, and he's going around and stealing all the other leprechauns' lucky
charms.
I guess lucky charms, yes. And so he starts to shrink. His mom becomes a leprechaun. His grandpa,
they digress into leprechauns.
Yeah, and then so he's on a journey with his friends to go get his necklace back. They end up meeting the guy. They make a deal to play a game of sports, and the winner will get the necklace. And then in the end, he ends up winning and banishing the evil bad guy. And then they sing "This Land Is My Land" at the end.
Correct. I was going to say that. And then there's the subplot about the grandpa, right?
Yes. So they kind of moved away from the grandpa,
right?
And then he eventually found him.
Right. And then the lesson of the movie is about being proud of your heritage, essentially.
Yeah, essentially, yes.
It's a very wholesome theme, but it's so silly. These people literally, their curse is that they become more Irish and become little leprechaun people, and it's so silly. I liked it as a kid, though.
Yes, and you can just see, he's in a scene and his mom's a leprechaun, so you're just oh, this is clearly not,
Right. My nostalgic plug for this movie is actually one of the actors in it, which is the little leprechaun man, which is Riley O'Reilly is the character. He's played by Henry Gibson, and I love to plug this movie. So first of all, he's the main Nazi in Blues Brothers, which I really love that movie, and I watched it a lot as a kid. But then he's also the creepy neighbor in The Burbs. Have you seen The Burbs?
I have not.
It is a Tom Hanks movie. I think it's from the 80s. Oh my god, I love to tell people to watch this movie. This was a huge family movie of mine as a kid. My family would sit down and watch The Burbs every year. The plot is it's in a suburb. Tom Hanks has new neighbors come in, and they're very creepy, and they think that they're doing nefarious things in their basement. And so all of the neighbors gang up to try to investigate what's happening with this family. It's a very fun movie. But, so that actor's very nostalgic for me, and so I liked watching this movie as a kid in addition to watching The Burbs. Because I just, recognized that actor. So, good stuff. Next, your third selection, Cadet Kelly.
Yes.
Which, interestingly, when I was looking up, rankings, people's rankings of Disney Channel movies, this ranked much higher than I expected it to. Lots of love for Cadet Kelly.
Yeah, I think mainly, and I think my reason, too, is you have Hilary Duff, who, Lizzie McGuire.
Yes.
So you're like, oh yes, I remember her, and I can't remember Hilary Duff doing much outside of Lizzie McGuire, but this was definitely her
Cinderella
heyday.
Story.
And then my bad.
Cinderella Story with Chad Michael Murray.
And then also, I'm gonna blank on her name, but her co-star is
Carlson Romano. Yep.
She's even Stevens. She's the sister.
And Kim Possible.
Oh, I did not know.
Yes, she's the voice of Kim Possible. So she is just like, we could do just an episode on her.
She's a Disney staple.
She is
Make
a
her
Disney staple.
Princess.
Yes, she really is. Real life Disney princess. But yes,
Yeah.
So give us the plot of Cadet Kelly also.
So Cadet Kelly, basically Hilary Duff's character, her parents are divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom remarries, I think a general in the army.
Something
or
like that.
A military figure.
Yes.
They end up moving, and she has to enroll in the military school. I think then he's going to oversee.
And she's like a cool, quirky, fashionista type girl too. Like she's like a girly girl is kind of how they establish her. Right?
I think she was raised like in New York City.
Right.
So she's very
like a metropolitan woman. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And basically she ends up butting heads with what's her
Christy
name?
Carlson Romano, whatever her
Yes.
character's name is.
So they end up butting heads. I think on the fact that they both kind of like one of the guys there.
Right.
And so they kind of end up going at it. Long story short, they end up coming together in some weird drill thing where they're like hitting their chest. I don't know if that's real military. If it is, I apologize. But it looks, if you rewatch it, it looks kind of ridiculous.
There's some great memes of Cadet
It's like a
Kelly.
dance-off,
Yes.
but they're doing like drill signs.
It's like a breakdancing drill almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if that is a real thing, again, I apologize, but it looks kind of ridiculous. But they end up having to go to like a drill team competition, but at the same time, her dad doesn't, not her stepdad, but her other dad doesn't show up, and she's worried, and her stepdad ends up taking her, going to find him. He's like off a cliff somewhere.
Yes.
She saves him, then comes back to the competition late, and they end up getting second place. I think
This is like a strange military propaganda movie for Disney to hop on. I liked this one as a kid too. I remember watching this, I think mostly because I just wanted to be Hilary Duff and I was obsessed with Hilary Duff. But it's kind of it's another weird one. Another weird entry.
Yeah, if you think about it too hard, you're like, this makes no sense. But if you don't, you're like, oh, it's a nice kid.
Yeah.
It's meant for kids, so I think
it
flies.
is. And like I was saying, I think it's kind of reemerged recently because it's been memed. I've seen it on TikTok quite a bit. Like the breakdancing section, yes, as like her like chest pump thing has been a reemergence, I think, over the last couple years. So Cadet Kelly lives on.
Yes, it's bad, but if you watch it, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, like I can see why as a kid I loved this. It had, that just flavor to it.
I mean, it's the Hilary Duff flavor. I literally loved Hilary Duff so much. She was so important to me. Like, as a child, I watched so much Lizzie McGuire. The Lizzie McGuire movie is incredible.
Oh, wow. I was going to ask because the Even Stevens movie is a Disney Channel original, Disney Channel original movie.
I'm pretty sure it is.
DCOM.
Yeah. But yeah, Lizzie McGuire was like a theatrical release because I saw it in the theater.
What's the song they sing where she sings with herself at the end?
This is what dreams are made of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still a banger.
Hey now, hey now. Oh, this is my favorite trivia that I dug up of all of the movies because it's just simply disturbing. So one of the screenwriters named Michael Walsh, according to his Wikipedia page, this is like top of the Wikipedia page. He's an author. You know how they give like the titles of people, like what they've done?
Yeah.
Author, screenwriter, media critic, Islamophobe, and anti-feminist. That's just on the title. That's just on his Wikipedia page. So this man is just wildly problematic, writing military propaganda Disney Channel movies.
That is...
You're welcome.
I don't know if that's a fun fact, but that's a fact.
But isn't it wildly interesting?
Yeah.
Because I'm wildly interested in Michael Walsh because he sounds like an issue. And I like that he was paid by Disney Channel to write a film for kids.
Was this before or after? Like, did that title changed before.
I could not identify. Yeah, I have to assume it was probably following his work with Disney.
Bob Iger's like, this guy.
But, you know, back in 2002, it was a lot easier to fly under the radar. You know,
Very
your
true.
whole life wasn't online yet, so maybe if he was really problematic, it wasn't quite as public, and Disney didn't know.
That's
So,
fair.
I'll give him a pass. Not that Disney deserves a pass on anything, but I'll give them a pass on that one, so... So, moving into your fourth selection,
Yeah.
which I think is one of the most obvious selections that you would pick when talking about Disney Channel movies, which is, of course, High School Musical.
Yes, I think that's the one that everyone remembers the most.
Yes.
And then, I mean, I haven't watched the series they made.
High School Musical, the show.
Yes.
Yes.
I haven't watched that.
I mean, the show gave us Olivia Rodrigo, to be fair.
I'm not saying the show's bad. I'm just saying I haven't seen it.
I have not either.
Yeah. I'm a big Olivia Rodrigo fan. So.
Are
I don't
you?
want any. I am.
Do you have Sour on repeat? Like, do you feel passionately about her album?
So much.
Great.
Driver's License.
Driver's
Great.
License.
Now.
Anyway, yes. So the first High School Musical came out in 2006.
Wow. I thought, yeah. Okay. Wow. That was long. It makes me feel.
Yes. Gave us, of course, so many stars that I think people our age hold near and dear. Zac Efron, Vanessa Hudgens, Ashley Tisdale, amongst other, Corbin Blue,
Yeah.
although he was a bit of a star anyway because he had other Disney Channel original movies as well.
I was going to say, yeah.
My favorite Corbin Blue fact that I want to plug in is my friend, my high school, my childhood best friend, went to a Corbin Blue concert and was standing next to Corbin Blue's dad at the concert. And he's an actor. He's in, like, Poseidon Adventure or something like that. He's in movies.
Was it just them two at the concert?
No, it was like an outdoor concert and looked over and it was Corbin Blue's dad. Anyway,
Interesting.
I digress.
Yeah.
High School Musical.
Wait,
The
so was-
phenomenon.
This is a side note. Was Ashley Tisdale not doing Sweet Life before then?
Ooh, I think Sweet Life was after, but let's find out
interesting.
because I need to know.
Because that's the only, I mean, going into the movie, that's the only other character I knew or would have known.
Okay, so Sweet Life was just before.
Okay.
Sweet Life began in 2005. So she was definitely on the
Gotcha.
rise and was already probably pretty well known. And I did watch Sweet Life as a kid too. That was a big show for me. I don't know about you.
Similar, yes.
So High School Musical, I think, is definitely the biggest phenomenon of all of the Disney Channel original movies, I would say.
Yes.
There's definitely other large franchises in the DCOM world. There's Camp Rock, Cheetah Girls. The
Yes.
new one is The Descendants, is a big one for the younger folk. I know, like, my niece really likes
Okay.
The Descendants. So there's been some other franchises. However, nothing like High School Musical. High School Musical 2, can you guess how many viewers there were in 2007 for High School Musical 2?
So it's funny because I specifically remember the second one, them promoting it like it was,
Yes.
Avengers Endgame. Like it was the biggest
Yes.
thing ever. I would guess like 10 million.
17.2 million viewers. This is more viewers than the show Friends had at its most popular in the early 2000s. This movie was a phenomenon. This is more viewers than Game of Thrones is getting. Like, Game of Thrones averages about 9 million viewers a week, and that's like one of the biggest, I'm talking about House of the Dragon now, but
Yeah.
one of the biggest shows on television, period. This had 17 million viewers. That is insane. I remember
crazy.
having a party with my friends to watch the premiere of this film.
Same thing. The first one I think was just, I didn't watch the premiere, but I remember watching it because it was on a lot.
Same.
And then the second one I remember
Yes.
it was a big deal. It was like, this is the sequel, strap in.
We had goodie bags that were like High School Musical goodie bags with like the faces of the cast on it.
Mhm.
We had a sleepover. We were so pumped for this movie. I had every single soundtrack on CD that I listened to on my little Walkman. Like the passion that I had for High School Musical was unparalleled.
And what's amazing, and I know we talked about this briefly before we started recording, the second one's better.
The second one is better.
The second one is better.
It
which
is a better film.
crazy.
Yes. I just rewatched 1 and 2 recently. They're both delightful, and I still enjoy them. And I mean that with my whole heart. And so much of it is just nostalgia, which is the theme of this podcast. And
Yeah.
that's why I think I like it so much. But the second one is just objectively better. And the music is better in the second one.
Yeah.
Also, Zac Efron is not actually singing in the first one.
Oh, really?
Drew Seeley is singing in the first one.
I did not know that.
Someone else is singing for him. Oh, yes. Zac Efron does not sing in the first movie. And then they let him sing in the second one. And we get the delightful golf course scene.
That's Bet on It, right? Bet on It. Yep.
Bet on It. So good.
What's amazing about that one is not so much the first one, but the second one is shot almost like a quote-unquote real movie. The other DCOMs before then are not, they're very much kind of in the vein of like a Disney Channel show.
Yeah.
This one was like a cinematic, it's not like, Dunkirk, but it's a cinematic production.
They had budget. There was budget.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I don't think I can underscore enough like how much of a phenomenon this was. Like Zac Efron was literally everywhere. Like women were little girls were so obsessed with Zac Efron. Also, in rewatching the films, they really objectify Zac Efron. Like now that I'm an adult woman and I can watch the films with a different lens, dude is shirtless a lot and he's supposed to be like 16 and it's very uncomfortable. I'm like, what are they doing here? Like there's locker room scenes of shirtless Zac Efron.
Yeah, that is kind of especially for like a Disney Channel movie. I mean, like there's Euphoria on HBO, which kind of high school
different
context.
Well, and like Zac Efron was like actually pretty young. I think he was like over 18 by the time they filmed the second one, but I think he might have been under 18 when they filmed the first one.
And I know you say Zac Efron, Vanessa Hudgens was every guy's.
Oh yeah.
Like I mean, to this day, I'm like, I think I would drop dead if I ever met her in person.
Correct. I mean, she's still very hot.
Yes.
So good for her. Yes, we love Vanessa Hudgens.
She was dating Elvis.
She was dating Elvis, and now Elvis is arguably more famous than her. Austin Butler's doing really well for himself. Apparently, I have to share my tea that I know about this, was she paid for his shit for years. Like, he just lived with her, because she was super rich, because she did all this High School Musical, and he just lived with her while he was a struggling actor. And then I think he cheated on her. She dumped him after, like, 10 years together. They were together forever. He cheated on her, broke up, and now he gets to be super famous. And arguably, she's not very famous anymore. So very unfair.
Wasn't he in High School Musical?
Is Austin Butler in High School Musical?
I think that's how they met. Like,
I wonder if he's like an extra or if I'm just forgetting. Wonder if he's on the basketball team. Is he on the basketball team?
I don't know. I also know he's in, this is another side note, Ned's Declassified School Survival.
He is in Ned's Declassified. That is correct. I do remember that. But anyway, so we agree the second one is the best. Fun fact, I've never seen the third one.
I was telling my friend that I was, going to be talking about it, and we were discussing, and I was like, I can't even remember the plot of the third one.
I think they're graduating. That's all I remember.
Yeah, they said that Zac Efron's character is debating between going to like basketball school or following Gabriella to like a theater school.
Oh, classic. So it's kind of just a rehash of the first movie.
Yes.
Essentially.
Because there are no colleges that offer both basketball and theater.
Right. Like you can't, of course, do that anywhere.
Absolutely not.
Oh, there's a siren. Hold on. Let's let the siren pass. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
It's really loud.
It's really loud.
Dude, I'll just sidebar for a second because I can cut this out. I tried to go pick up this table that I ordered from West Elm after work, and the roads were so bad I had to turn around. I saw like a 10-car accident, and I made it like half a mile from my house. It's really loud.
Both basketball and theater.
Right, like you can't, of course, do that anywhere.
Absolutely not.
Oh, there's a siren. Hold on. Let's let the siren pass. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
It's really loud.
It's really loud.
Dude, I'll just sidebar for a second because I can cut this out. I tried to go pick up this table that I ordered from West Elm after work, and the roads were so bad I had to turn around. I saw like a 10-car accident, and I made it like half a mile from my house. It's like gnarly right now. It's crazy.
Insane.
Anyway, the siren is not quite done yet, so I'm going to keep waiting.
Okay.
Can you still hear it?
No, I can't hear it.
I can hear it, though. I have a feeling, because it's right down the street is where the car accident was. It's this big hill.
Oh.
And so people were getting stuck at the top of the hill. And I dipped. I turned because I was like, And I almost couldn't turn because my car was like, just couldn't. And I have a good car. I have an SUV. And my car just like could barely do it. And I watched this other car try to bail. They were trying to do a U-E because they couldn't get up the hill.
Yeah.
And they bailed too fast and they swirled and went into a tree. Like I watched somebody just crash their car into a tree.
You should leave this on the episode. Just keep people on there.
I actually could. I mean, who cares? It's not like I have millions of viewers yet. It's just a normal podcast right I say yet, like I'm gonna get famous with this show.
Who knows?
Who knows? I don't know. I think the siren is gone now, so we can resume. What were we talking about? We were talking about the third one.
Third one, yes.
Third one.
That there being no colleges that have both.
Correct. Yeah, like
and
there's
basketball.
nowhere that you can, of course, play sports and do theater. Like that just simply doesn't exist.
But that's the charm of a Disney Channel movie. Don't
It
think
is,
about
and
it. Don't think
and
about
I
it.
think that's like a broader theme of all of these Disney Channel movies. Is they tend to generalize a lot of things. Like it's very simplistic characterization.
Yeah. Like, well, now I'm thinking about Luck of the Irish, and I'm like, why did they not go to the police to be like, this guy stole our thing?
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
this is definitely, like, it's low budget filmmaking, right? Like,
Yeah.
they don't put a lot of money behind any of these films except, like, the really big franchises. Like, I think, like, High School Musical, the sequels had some budget. Camp Rock 2 probably had some budget.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's pretty low budget stuff. So, the writing's a little weak. There's some weird editing in the first High School Musical. Like, I noticed
Yes.
it watching it. I'm like, wow, there's some weird choices that they made here. Or you could tell they just didn't really get the shot, but they had to use it because they didn't have anything else to use for coverage.
Yeah,
Stuff
it's
like
that
that.
sequence, the one they're all in the cafeteria.
The status quo.
Yes,
sequence.
that has some very
It does.
interesting editing choices.
It does. Like, you can tell they just, like, didn't quite get the coverage. I mean, it happens, but it was, like, kind of rough. Like, I really noticed it. Let me look up. I'm curious what this director has done. Oh, okay. So I've seen this man's face several times. I think the director, Kenny Ortega, is familiar to me probably because of High School Musical.
Okay.
It looks like he has directed all of The Descendants, which is, like, the modern High School Musical. I think that makes a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, too, because I think the reason I think this makes me super nostalgic, too, is that, and I didn't really know about The Descendants, and to be fair, I haven't watched any really new DCOM movies.
Nor have I.
But there was that decade kind of from, like, 99 to, 2009, where I
Yep.
feel like that was, and it was before streaming, too, and it was before, I think
That's a good
Netflix
point.
made original content, so there wasn't, like, this, I don't know. It just felt very unique that you didn't have to go to the theater, but they were also premiering these new movies.
Right. Yeah,
on
and like
TV.
looking at the list of when they released all these films, you really nailed it. I listed from 2000 to 2011 was like their
Okay.
main time where they were like really cranking them out. Basically every single year in that time period, they were making at least 5 a year. At least a year every year.
Goodness.
Some years, like 2008, I think had 10. Over 10 Disney Channel releases
Wow.
in 1 year. And then they've kind of scaled back in recent years. They're more at like
Yeah.
2 to 3 a year. They're still releasing them. They're still happening.
Okay.
But it's definitely not at the scale that it was when we were kids, the ones consuming
Yeah.
these.
And does it just go right to the Disney Pluses? I'm assuming.
I'm
Doesn't
assuming
really-
so. I mean, I think that is probably what they're doing now. I don't know why they wouldn't be doing that because it's a good way to get people to go to the platform. But yeah, I mean, we really were growing up in the exact heyday of these movies. Were you someone who, like you kind of mentioned, like getting to watch them premiere at home? Were you like aware of when a new one was coming out and you'd sit and try to watch it when it came out? Like, do you remember that at all?
Yeah, I would. I was definitely aware because I watched like Phil of the Future and
Yes.
Wizards of Waverly Place, Hannah Montana, and like, they would always have those commercials whenever the premiere was for the movie or whatever. But yeah, I just remember like, oh, I gotta watch that because I think a lot of it too is they took a lot of like we said, like Hilary Duff, they took a lot of people you were already watching and put them in the movie.
Right. They have their little star system and they
Yeah.
plug them all. Like, Lindsay Lohan was in a DCOM movie. Raven was in Xenon, which is one of my favorites.
Wendy Wu, Homecoming Warrior. That's,
Right, Brenda Song.
Brenda Song. She was in a couple.
Demi Lovato became famous from Camp Rock.
Camp Rock. Yeah.
Obviously, Selena Gomez was in the Wizard of Waverly Place movie, obviously.
Jonas Brothers.
The Jonas Brothers, of course, another childhood obsession of mine. Yeah, like there's so many stars that all these kids were super attached to, and they would just plug them in all of these movies all the time. And it was almost a childhood version of like water cooler chat. Like that's what you would talk about with your friends, was like the Disney Channel movie.
Yes. Totally. That, and then when they would have like the crossover episodes were also a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
The Sweet Life of Hannah Montana.
Yes.
That's so Sweet Life of whatever.
That's So Sweet Life. Yes, I remember that. Oh my gosh, that's a throwback too. That maybe is a separate episode.
I
It's
know.
like more. We could do it. I mean, Disney Channel in itself, you could do so many different topics,
Yeah.
right? Because it's so integral to so many of our childhoods, and I feel like when we were growing up, that was really like the pinnacle of it. That's when it was really huge. Was in the late '90s and into the 2000s. You know, that was when cable was really big. Obviously things have changed so much with streaming. I think what's popular now is a little bit different, but that was, I mean, everyone would just sit down and watch all of these movies.
Well, I think too is like a lot of my younger siblings, they had YouTube and
Right.
TikTok now, and I don't think there is that, like, we didn't really have anything for us to, I had a flip phone, and if you hit the internet, you would like hit exit real quick and take the battery out, so
My
you wouldn't
minutes!
get
It's gonna use
charged.
my minutes!
Like, I know it's gonna charge me.
Yeah.
But now I think, I don't know. I mean, I'm not really familiar with what kids watch, but I know a lot of them watch, like Mr. Beast, I know is huge. I think that, so I don't really know how much they're watching. What's the appeal to like go on Disney Plus and look up an original movie? Whereas I think we just kind of like, you just turn on the TV and you're like, whatever's on is on. That's kind of what I'm
Right.
watching.
Like we had Disney, Nickelodeon, and Cartoon Network.
Mhm.
Those were kind of all I watched.
Yes,
That was
the big three, yeah.
those were my channels. We didn't have any other options. We had dial up when I was a really little kid, and then we got normal internet. But I remember when YouTube came out. Like I remember that, which I would love to do a separate episode about early YouTube. But yeah, like there wasn't anything else to watch, so this is what we watched. And parents knew it was safe, right? Like that was what we could watch. It was made for kids, and it premiered at like a very reasonable time at like 7 p.m. You could watch the movie, and
Totally. Yeah, it was a very, and you're right, like, because you go to school the next day, if there was, like High School Musical or a Camp Rock, and that's what you would talk about.
Yeah.
Or it would be in, did you ever get like the Scholastic like magazines?
oh
They
yes,
would promote so much in there, too.
they
and-
would. So you gave a nice little story about having Luck of the Irish on a VHS tape, but
Yeah.
do you have any other like kind of memories of watching some of these movies that stick out to you, or sharing any of these with your siblings that you can remember?
I mean, the Luck of the Irish one, I think, is just the one that sticks in my brain the most. If I had to pick another one, it'd probably be one of the High School Musical movies, of just watching it for like the 30th time, and people like my siblings singing along,
Sure.
and everyone, just kind of sitting there, and like, what's the song at the end? Like, we're all in this together. It was
Of course.
on just repeat.
So
yeah.
good.
But yeah, I think just even now, like, obviously we're all kind of grown up, but if Luck of the Irish is on, I'm not sure it'll be on, but like we could watch it, and I think it would just be such a, just take everyone back to like a simpler time in all of our lives.
In rewatching these, because you said that you rewatched them to prepare for
Yeah.
this, did they hold up for you? Were there any of these four like kind of stinky to you, or did you feel like you still enjoyed them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you kind of take them for what they're worth. Like, I didn't go in expecting them to be anything more than just a
Right.
cheesy kids movie.
Sure, yeah.
Like we said, like, you think about it too much, and you're like, well, this makes no sense. But I think rewatching it, I was just more thinking about, like, remembering watching the movie than I was
Sure.
actually thinking about the movie.
Sure.
But I would say, and I would actually say High School Musical 2 probably holds up the best.
I would agree.
Like, kind of like we already talked, like, with probably the budget they had. Like, that could be made, I don't know, that doesn't feel so dated. I guess Cadet Kelly and Luck of the Irish, Halloweentown feel very dated.
They do.
But they're also 20 years old, so.
Right. They feel
What are
20
you
years
gonna
old,
do?
but I mean, they work, and I agree with you. And I think obviously so much of it, like I said earlier, is the nostalgia. Like, we connect with it. We have fond memories of it. And that's why, I mean, I think so many people like things that are 20, 30 years old, because you recall them in a fond way, because they were from a simpler time in your life. And that's kind of what makes them special, even if they aren't anything spectacular, right?
I would agree.
So I just want to make sure that I mention some of my favorite Disney Channel movies.
Yes.
Beyond High School Musical, because High School Musical is one of my favorites. I do also love Halloweentown. But Xenon, which I mentioned earlier, Girl of the
Yes.
21st Century, they made, I think, 3 of those, because Z3 was the name of the third one.
Okay.
I loved Xenon as a kid. I think that might have been my favorite. Like, when I was when I was like little, because those came out like around 2000. Ultimate Christmas Present. Do you remember that one?
I don't remember that one. No.
They get a little machine that can generate snow, and so they generate a snowstorm to have a snow day, but then it gets out of control, and Santa like can't come for Christmas.
Yes, I do. Now that I don't remember what it was called, but I remember the plot of it, because they're in like California or something where it never snows.
Yeah. Correct. And then it just gets way out of hand because the infrastructure cannot handle a snowstorm. It's actually kind of a fun plot, and it's fun. I revisited that like last Christmas, and I watched it with my mom, and she was like, that was actually kind of fun. Yeah. So that one was still pretty good. Phantom of the Megaplex. Do you remember that one?
Describe the plot. Maybe I know the plot without the movie.
It's a riff on Phantom of the Opera, but it takes place in a movie theater. So there's like a phantom haunting these kids who are in a movie theater, and it's actually really fun. That one feels really dated. Like, that's definitely one where you'd revisit it and be like, ooh, but it's fun. Yeah. It's a good, as someone who I've always liked like kind of scary or creepy things, and this one definitely isn't like scary, but it's leaning that way, and I always liked that one. But then I think my favorite besides High School Musical would be Smart House.
So I was gonna say that Smart House kind of fits in that similar like kind of dark mix.
Yep.
But that Smart House was, I think, the first one I actually remember ever seeing, even before Halloweentown.
I also remember watching that very young.
Yeah.
I remember my parents kind of liking that one too. Mm-hmm. It kind of slaps, and the premise is kind of interesting.
Yeah, especially nowadays, where with like Alexa and everything, you know.
Yeah, no, it like really holds up. Like, this was way before any Smart House stuff existed. Yeah. Like, you could not like. Alexa was not real. There weren't smart thermostats. You didn't have smart, like, lighting. Like, none of that stuff existed when this movie came out.
Yeah.
And it's great. Do you know who directed Smart House?
I don't.
LeVar Burton.
No way. LeVar.
Of Reading Rainbow and of Star Trek. LeVar Burton directed Smart House.
Good for him.
I know. And it's a great movie. Really, I know. I'm so happy for LeVar. I love LeVar Burton. So when I read that, I was like, are you kidding me? That's amazing. So... And I loved LeVar Burton as a child, too. Maybe I'll do a Reading Rainbow episode someday. But were you a Reading Rainbow guy?
No, I'm sorry.
I was. Oh, man. I love Reading Rainbow. But that's a separate conversation. I'll find someone else to talk to me about Reading Rainbow. Any final thoughts on DCOMs?
Final thoughts? I think that rewatching them definitely made me feel... I don't know. It was just, again, kind of like, take them for what they're worth. They're very cheesy. They're made for kids. I would... love to watch them with my kids one day. I think they would be such a great experience. Yeah. I think we talked about you kind of feeling the same way. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. There's something about that, like, that kind of encapsulates a certain decade, I feel, very well.
The mid-2000s experience is really is really in those movies like none other. So, well, thanks for joining me. This was delightful. And
thanks for having me.
We'll have to do it again with a different nostalgia trip another time.
Yes, of course. Anytime.
Thank you for joining me on this nostalgia trip. If you liked what you heard, follow the podcast to keep tripping through time with us. And if you're feeling extra supportive, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at NostalgiaTripPod for bonus content, episode release schedules, and more. Want to hear a certain topic or have a recommendation for the pod? Email us at nostalgiatrippod@gmail.com. Until next time,